We'll admit people na po, two people currently in the waiting room. Good afternoon to all our guests and participants. We will begin the program in 2 minutes. Thank you. Good day, everyone. We send you greetings of peace and joy wherever you are in the world at this time. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We welcome you to today's webinar on Bast fiber textile and barcloth culture in Cambulo, Banawe, Ifugao, the Philippines. This session is broadcasted live via the coastal cities at risk in the Philippines. My name is Clarissa Mijares. I'm a faculty member at the Department of Sociology and Anthropology of the Ateneo de Manila University. Before we begin, please be guided by our house rules for today's session. Please note that this session will be recorded for documentation purposes. All guests and participants are automatically muted upon entry, but we request that everyone be mindful not to turn on their microphones throughout the entire session. For panelists, please keep your video off and your microphone unmuted unless it is your turn to speak. For attendees, please send your questions into the Zoom chat box so that we can take note of these and raise them during our open forum. This video will be uploaded into SICAR PH Facebook account later, and others may engage with the material when it is posted. Let us now start the webinar with welcome remarks from the project leader and co-principal investigator for SICAR PH, Emerita Professor from Ateneo de Manila University and Science Research Fellow with the Manila Observatory, Dr. Emma Porio as the co-chair of the International Climate Change Council Network, the Adaptation Workstream. Dr. Emma Porio.
Thank you very much, Isa. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first of our webinar series on Earth-attuned livelihoods and locally led climate adaptation series. Today, we are fortunate to have Yuki Minami Ito and Dr. Pitso Ito to share their work on Bast fiber, textile, and barcloth culture in Cambulo, Banawi, Ifugao province. We're also fortunate to have Jo Villanueva to share her comments on Earth-attuned livelihoods and locally led adaptations. We at the Coastal Cities at Risk Project subscribe to the three principles of transdisciplinary action research. One, we basically believe that for us to be able to mobilize our climate knowledge effectively, one, we must co-generate our knowledge with stakeholders. Two, we must co-create our capacities with scientists, practitioners, and professionals. Third, we basically believe that if we follow these two principles, it shall lead to co-ownership, co-stewardship, and co-benefits. It is within these principles that we are starting this very important series, especially principle number 2. We believe that by working with our stakeholders, by working with professionals and practitioners, we scientists at the universities and research institutes will be able to basically create mechanisms for co-ownership, co-stewardship, and co-benefits of our programs and projects. So without much ado, I'd like to say that, this is very important point that we are embarking in SICAR, because a lot of climate adaptation studies and a lot of climate action really comes from the point of view of scientists, of policymakers, and people who really do not have much connectedness to the people on the ground who are trying to adapt, cope with the threats of climate change. So thank you very much for coming to this webinar. Keep tuned of our activities. You can see in our logos there the people that we're working with, and also I'd like you to look at our websites. It's ctpsresilienceToolkit.ph and it's ctps Coastal Cities at Risk ph.com. There you'll be able to see all our work in the past few years, but for now and in this period we start focusing on the work of people on the ground, marginalized groups, women, children, women-headed households, and LGBTQIs who are really striving very much to cope with the climate impacts on the ground. So thank you very much for coming to this webinar, and we hope you'll keep track of our work, and please write us also in terms of your responses and your comments about this new endeavor that we're starting. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emma Porio. We now move on to the main part of our program. Our presenters for today are Ms. Yukiko Minami Ito and Dr. Tetsu Ito. Ms. Yuki Ito is a visiting research fellow at Coastal Cities at Risk in the Philippines, Ateneo de Manila University. Dr. Tetsu Ito is an especially appointed researcher at the Institute of Regional Studies at Okinawa University since 2013. Let us all give a warm welcome to Ms. Yuki and Dr. Tetsu Ito.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. Let me just share the slides that I'll be using for this seminar. I hope you can all hear me very well. Let me just adjust myself here. Okay, hold on. Why is this way this way? Okay. Apologies. And once again, good afternoon, and thank you for attending or everyone tuning in to listen to our discussion of our recent interaction with the backstrap weavers and beaters in Cambulo, Banaue, Ifugao in the Philippines. Let me just contextualize where we are talking about when we say Barangay Cambulo or so-called barangay. It's a village located in Banaue Municipality in Ifugao Province in the Philippines. Barangay Cambulo has an approximate population of around 1,150 as of statistics of 2020 and a household over 200. The people are categorized as Ayan Lugang, and the area, as you can see in this picture, is surrounded by rich forest and river passing by, and the people are producing their own rice, vegetables, poultry, and livestock. As you can see on this picture, the rice terraces are stretched from the adjacent barangay Batad and then to Cambulo and to Pula. And many of the trekkers pass by from, for example, other countries, France, Israel, and many other countries, to walk along the stone-built edges of these terraces. Reaching to Barangay Cambulo is quite a distance if you're coming from Manila. It will take you about 9 hours by bus ride, or 9 or 10 hours by bus ride from Manila to Banaue itself. And then you have to, from Banaue, take a jeepney ride. And you would have to ride jeepney for about 30 to 1 hour, depending on the weather situation, until the drop-off point of the entrance of Cambulo. Then from the entrance of Cambulo drop point, you have to walk down about 1,000 steps to reach the village center. So imagine when you're climbing up again, it's 1,000 another step to climb up. So for this presentation for today, we'll be sharing about bast fiber textile and barcloth cultures in Cambulo, Banaue, Ifugao. The discussions we will be having, me and Tetsu, would be about what are bast textiles and barcloth, who produces them, and what happened during recent or for the past 1.5 years, we had had weavers to weavers learning exchanges. And this, mind you, is a learning exchange rather than one way of aid projects that we normally do in other aid agencies. And what are the new ideas that is sprouting, and findings about bast fibers. And lastly, we will finish off with a thinking piece of evolution of forest commons and creation of cultural commons. So with this, let us first dive into the first area, which we want to understand what are the bast textiles and barcloths. What are the differences between the two, and where are they sourced, and what is the preparation procedure if they're same or different, and when they are used. Now, This is a very symbolic kind of a slide that you would see. On the left side, there are bast fiber cloths, and on the right side, there are bark cloths. So if you visit, and if you haven't yet visited the National Museum of Anthropology in Manila, please go and have a look at the collection, beautiful collections displayed on textiles. The displays there will distinguish between the very well-known traditional cloths taken from leaves and veins of the plants, such as abaca, which is a Manila hemp, or piña, which is a red Spanish variety of a pineapple, while the other distinguished part of it would be the bast cloth woven with threads taken from the bast of a young tree, or and bark cloths made by beating and spreading the barks. So for the purpose of this presentation, we will follow what the museum had referred to as two distinct areas. So bast cloth, for this presentation, we would say it's a woven fabric of forest tree, as you can see on the left side. And for the bark cloth, like what you see on the right side, these are non-woven fabrics. They're basically beaten up and spread. So let's just be mindful about these two different cloths. This is an example of the forest that you can see in the nearby in Barangay Cambulo. The materials of both the bast fibers and bark cloths are sourced from their nearby wild forests within Barangay Cambulo. There are about 10 different varieties of species used that gives distinct natural thread colors. So just to reiterate that the colors that the weavers use or the beaters use is not dyed in Cambulo. It is naturally coming out from different kinds of trees, and even distinct between the young trees or the old tree, because they give different colors. So since the source of these materials are coming from the forest, and these are fundamental fundamentals to be able to source these materials for weaving or beating, you can see that there are certain younger generations who are not too keen of pursuing this way of sourcing the materials in such wild forest, and therefore they are starting to lose such ability to identify which are the trees that they can source for the weavings and beating. The details of these different varieties of trees will be discussed later by Tetsu. So we can move on to the next steps. So on this slide, it's just the flow of a simply giving you an overview of how the preparation of the bast fiber weavings are done. So just to say that the bast fiber and bark cloth preparation differs. So this slide is on the bast fiber. And for the thread preparation for weaving, which is using the bast fiber itself, once the tree is cut from the forest, you immediately peel the skin off from the bark and remove the outer brown skin part of it, and then pound the inner fiber for easy splitting, for plying, joining, then twist it in a one motion using normally a two-cord spindle. That's on the right edge of the upper layer. That's the spindle that they use to do that one motion. And after the fibers are joined, they are boiled in a lye, which is like an ash, and remove any organic residuals that are attached to the thread. This tries to avoid the development of a fungus, to be able to keep it for a longer time. And then dry them and prepare the thread into a bowl to finally put the thread on the loom to be able to start weaving. So that is how the bast fiber weaving is being prepared. I forgot to get the bowl that I can show you. Maybe I can show you later on. So as for the bark cloth, Once a log is identified that is suitable in size and the length, the log will be beaten continuously using a beater or another log until the outer skin starts to loosen up. And finally, after they start to loosen up, it completely comes off from the inner layer of the log. The bark cloth will then be designed as the artist would want. So this is a Imbaya, this is a festival, the fiesta that was held in Banawe itself and also in Barangay Cambulo. So in the Banawe area, the tradition of bast and barcloth remains in Cambulo and Pula currently, and opportunities to wear these cloths are mainly limited to during the festival times. But until the 1980s, there were still bast weavers in some other areas, nearby areas. And according to Miss Lily Bayer of the Banawi Museum, she said that without a successor, the tradition sadly dies out. Lily has been a strong supporter for the weaving culture around Banawe, including Cambulo for many, many years. So I would like to now zoom in to the Cambulo bast fiber weavers. So as you can see on this picture, we have 4 women in Cambulo who continues to weave the bast cloth using a circular warp loom. These 4 ladies are from the left, Josephine, Agapita, Nena, and Felisa. All of them, based on discussing with them, started the bast cloth weaving during sometime mid-1990s when an NGO called PRRM launched a program to support the bast fiber weavers in Cambulo. Well, back then, the number of weavers increased because the PRRM came and taught them how to do, and they were buying their products. So they had like 15 weavers at that time. But currently there only remains 4 weavers. But these 4 normally come together and they would weave together and chit chat together, but they would only weave mainly by taking orders. The next generation, Nena's daughter, Lisa, and the stepdaughter, Janet, these are the 2 ladies who had helped us with the interpretation between the weavers. They actually do not practice too much the weaving itself, but they are very familiar with the entire process of making threads to weaving because they were grown up in a household where mothers are doing so. So they had been helping or were actually seeing it. So but as discussed earlier, the fundamental material is the foundation of the source of the material is sourced from the nearby forest. And that is the problem that these 2 ladies are not too familiar of how to identify the appropriate trees from the forest. But they could be a potential successor of the next generation of the weavers, but they also felt that, they cannot make enough money out of it. So therefore, they currently are opting to become the massage therapists, which they had trainings, and while they are also taking care of their rice fields. On the right, you would see two men who are the beaters, but there are several men within Cambulo who beats barcloths. The left side is Jesse, who is one of the weaver's son, Felicia's son, and right side, Bernie, is Lisa's husband. And there is another person who is not on this picture, but Uncle Gregorio. The people in Cambulo wear these cloths and hats and vests along with the loin cloths during the festival time, as I showed you in the previous slide. And the beaters from time to time prepare these bark hats when there are fiestas or festivals before that. When we looked into the National Museum of Anthropology and also looked into the book entitled Barcloth in Southeast Asia, it refers to Ifugao Barcloth as if though it's a past tense, but as you can see, it's still a living culture in Cambulo. Now, the mutual learning exchanges between the weavers and weavers. I'd like to just show you this picture to begin with. This was a photo taken during the second visit. We had visited Cambulo for about 6 times almost for the past year and a half. This was the second picture. I'm pointing to Tetsu in the red arrow here because he's wearing a jacket that actually impressed the weavers. This is a jacket woven by one of the Japanese artists who later on joined our learning exchange visit, who produces her own woven threads and weaves on her own. So she was actually the one who made this, and all the weavers was very curious to learn about it because the texture was kind of similar. It's with what they are using. So that triggered our further ideas that might make sense to have a weaver to weavers mutual learning exchange, which is until now, it's continuing until today. Just to add here, for the very first time we visited Cambulo, we didn't know if the weavers existed. So friends from Department of Social Welfare and Development had helped us identify if there were still weavers in the barangay. And backside of me is Judith, who had helped and joined us to come to Cambulo, and before that preparation to brief the municipality and also the weavers about our visit. So thank you, Judith, and the DSWD for this. Now, the 3 Japanese weavers who joined the next round of the visit, which was about a year ago, there were 3. The first one is on the left side, who joined us 2 times, is Naoko Seno. She's a paper cloth artist using a Japanese paper washi to make threads into weaving. And while also later on, she was influenced in producing barcloth from her paper mulberry tree that she grows at her backyard in Ibaraki Prefecture in Japan. The second in the middle is Fumie Ishikawa. She produces kozo cloth in a Tokushima Prefecture in Japan. She cultivates her own kozo plant in her farm, and then she produces kozo to extract the fiber, the entire process making thread, and to weave on the loom to create her products. The third one is Toshie Hoshino. She is a master backstrap weaver who was trained to weave on a backstrap loom in Guatemala and Mexico, and she runs a Mayan weaving class in Kyoto. So these 3 were very interested in wanting to come to Cambulo to see and to actually learn from the weaver themselves how to extract the fibers and how to weave. So during their visit, they were able to visit the forest, to how to extract the fibers, and how learn about different kinds of varieties that Cambulo weavers use to make the threads, and how to ply join the fiber using spindle, and even to be able to beat the logs for making the barcloth. And of course, not to forget, tried weaving the backstrap itself. So this is a very unique two techniques that the Cambulo uses, which I just want to highlight here. The left side is a spindle that is used to ply join the fibers and then twist in a single motion to make a thread, which in other weaving, making thread techniques, they are often divided into 2 separate methodologies. The right side is the backstrap loom using body tension. It's not the same as the upright loom. It's a backstrap loom, and which is warped in a circular way that the Cambulo ways is being used. So this backstrap loom is commonly found across many of the Austronesian cultures. So on to the next one. Okay. Now, in return, the Cambulo weavers were also able to get some lessons of how to do the learning of the new ways of designing their thread, their weavings, mojiri weavings, which is particularly where the younger generation was more interested to learn. And we also had a weaver-to-weaver discussion and came up with new suggestions about potential new products and continue further until this day. As a result of the twice visit to Cambulo now creation sparked and now beats her own kozo grown in her house and produces a beautiful barcloth. She even wove Cambulo fibers into her own paper weaving and brought that on her second visit and gave a sample to the Cambulo weavers. Ishikawa-san started to teach the others within Japan how to ply, join, and twist to make thread using her own homemade ply join spindle. This is a replication of what Cambulo did, and she got that inspiration and learned the techniques from the Cambulo weavers herself. And meanwhile, Hoshino-san was exposed through this visit but to how to weave bast fibers and triggered her inspiration to come with ideas about what might be a potential product that the Cambulo weavers can start integrating in their own weaving. So what about me? So for a few years now, I've been learning backstrap across different places in Asia, and I was able to become the agent of learning from these three Japanese artists who came to visit together with us. So they were giving me learning so that I would because they knew that I was going back to Cambulo, for me to be the agent of transferring these techniques back to the people in Cambulo, the weavers in Cambulo. It was a tough moment for the past 6 months, intensively working on the backstrap so that I would be able to teach. And it was a worthwhile effort to be able to do so. During the discussion with the weavers, while we were all in Cambulo, we had this discussion about trying to understand what is happening on the ground. So the Japanese teams understood that there was this vicious cycle that was happening, that many, the continuity was a threat of this important cultural heritage and might disappear in any time. There were only 4 weavers left in Cambulo, all 60 to 70s of age, and the weavers who used to weave stopped as there were no pathway to sell, and therefore the younger generation was not too keen in continuing that. So after the discussion, everyone was thinking what might be the good way forward in breaking this vicious circle, and we all came up with several ideas that we agreed to maybe pursue. So the first one was providing the weavers with a weaving experience, because this is a touristic area where trekkers just pass by. So we said that maybe it would be a good weaving and cultural exposure for the trekkers if they want to learn more about what's really the cultural heritage in Cambulo. So one example of such is maybe through a 1-hour experience of using the understanding about the thread itself and weaving themselves. They can also get this token of bracelets back home as a memory of Cambulo. So there were trainings that held, and I think after we left, it has been a success, and they were able to sell a lot. Even in a day, the trekkers were very interested to buy their Cambulo made products. The second one was exploring about new products that could be developed, and the contribution of Hoshino-san was a great influence in doing this. So one is integrating the mojiri. You can see the patterns there. It's not the flat one, it's the pattern ones. These are kind of a leno weave, different variation of it. It's called mojiri weaving. And another one is the sling that you see on the bag itself. And this is like a woven sling, but it could also serve as a headband. So for the past 6 months, Hoshino-san taught me how to do this, and I was able to, as I explained earlier, to transfer this way of weaving to the weavers through a workshop, especially last week. When we were in Cambulo for the 1 week, we had spent doing these learning and teaching these to the English to the younger generation, or even outside of Cambulo. So they came because they wanted to learn. And for me, I would like to say that it's not only the next generation, but the next generation of the weaver also joined. So younger generation was able to join, and they are very much enthusiastic of developing these bracelets or headbands. Now the experimentation continues because they had some issues. I think sorry, just get me back. Yeah, sorry. The third one is trying out the possibility of using the way that they weave, but transferring that to any other ways of using it. So as you can see in this picture, this is an obi that we normally use in Japan wearing kimono. It's an obi belt. The size differs, but the way of weaving can be used. So what needs to be careful is the length and the tightness and perhaps the design, and needs to be washed. There were certain number of suggestions given by producers and sellers of obi from Kyoto and Tokyo, and we always carry back those feedbacks and fed them back to the weavers themselves. Now, the good news was that when we went back this time around, the perfect size of this measurement of this obi was handed over for us. This was the third time that we have tried with all the feedbacks, and we are happy to bring this back for another feedback, what the Kyoto and the Tokyo obi producer would have to say about this. So far, the weavers had been very, very creative to address some of these issues about some and interesting innovations that around the bast fibers weaving, and they were interested in experimenting new ways of listening to the other Japanese weavers were saying, or so they have certain experiments, and I would like Tetsu to walk us through on some of the experiments that had happened.
Okay, let me begin by talking about two important processes on thread making and dyeing, namely scoring and mordanting. It is a bit technical, but please bear with me. Scoring is the process of refining fibers by removing impurities. Scoring of bast fiber to make thread is typically done by boiling in lye or alkali solution, as Yukiko explained earlier. An alternative would be fermentation or bacteria scoring, another older, more time-consuming method. This process, namely retting, has traditionally been used to make linen thread from flax. Retting uses bacteria action and water to rot away the plant constituents that surround and support the long bast fibers. This method has also been tried in recent years by a handful of Japanese clothes artists who know that this method causes less damage to the fibers and are challenging themselves to make thinner and stronger bust clothes. Well, Ishikawa-san and Seno-san, they've been trying this method. And Janet tried fermentation scoring, responding to the feedback from the Japanese artists, pointing out that gutu and also gumamela, actually, these are the two local plants used by the Cambulo weavers. These two plants become slimy when they were washed after woven. The slimy elements may attract insects or mold. In addressing this issue, Janet experimented the fermentation method. Instead of boiling with lye for scoring gumamela, the result was a thread that is not slimy and whiter. The photo in the middle, this is the gumamela, which went through the fermentation scoring. And moldenting is the process of fixing dye to fibers during the dye processes. There are various types of mordants, including metal salts, such as aluminium salts, iron salts, calcium salts, and so on. Empirically knowing that the rice paddy contains iron salt, Nena dipped bakhi fiber into rice paddy, responding to the feedback also from the Japanese artists pointing out the color fading of bakhi when it's washed, with the concern of potential color transfer to other clothes when wearing together, like the case obi with kimono. The result was bakhi thread of dark reddish black color with no color fading. You can see this, the left picture and the right picture, both are the bakhi threads which went through this process. Since the fabric needs to be finished to an accurate size when it is made into an obi, Nena also responded by precisely checking the degree of shrinkage after washing through experimentations, and she wove clothes of the precise size. Again, this was the photo of the right one. Okay, Yukiko explained the weaver's recent effort to make obi. Why obi? And why do we promote exchanges with textile artists from Japan? Because there exists bast fiber textile culture across Japan, but not beaten barcloth. And such bast fiber clothes are often used for obi, the belt for kimono. All these plants in this table can be seen in forests in Japan, and bast fiber weavers go to forests to get them like Cambulo weavers, with an exception of kozo that is typically planted in the fields. I will not talk about all the bast today, but I will briefly touch on kaji, kozo, and fio. Kaji, or paper mulberry, is a plant that originates in southern China or Taiwan, and is said to have been brought to Japan by Austronesian peoples about 5,000 years ago. On the other hand, kozo is a hybrid of kaji and hime kozo, which can be seen across mainland Japan, Shikoku, and Kyushu, as well as Korea and China. Kaji and kozo have been commonly used as materials to make washi paper across Japan. Well, there is a group of weavers of kozo and kaji weaving only in Tokushima in Shikoku. Ishikawa-san learned kaji weaving there. By the way, this is a tree plant family which was mentioned in one literature which focus on the Cambulo bast fiber textiles. And fio is a plant of the hibiscus or gumamela. I think people call it gumamela here in the Philippines, growing wild in forests in warm climates. Coats and robes made from fio fibers have been found in Okinawa and the Kyushu Islands. In Koshikijima Islands in Kagoshima, the only fio clothing made from bast of hibiscus has been found in Japan. Fio clothing was valued for its lightness and coolness, and only wealthy families wore it as formal attire. The 4 remaining field clothes are kept at the Folklore Museum in that island, all of which were woven in the Edo or Meiji periods 100 to 200 years ago. In recent years, one woman tried to revive it, but there has been no successor and the tradition has eventually been lost. The reason I've chosen to introduce field textile, which is no longer practiced in Japan, is because it seems that Cambulo weavers appear to make threads from the plants of the same family. Not only tree bark, but also grass bast, not only tree bast, but also grass bast is used to make threads across Japan. I don't go into details of these, as what we've seen in Cambulo are tree bast fiber textile, not grass. So maybe I skip this slides. This is a table, tree and grass bast fiber woven in Southeast Asia. Well, I just touch on probably 2 items. Well, Abacapina people is from the Philippines, and actually, Abaca and Pina textiles have been also quite popular. Well, it's very popular among core textile artists and fans in Japan. Likewise, some other plant fibers, yarns, and or clothes on this table, except lemba, are also brought to Japan from Southeast Asia to make obi and other things. Next, please. These 2 literature are the key reference literature, well, 2 key references on bast fiber textiles, especially the first one shows details of ply joining, warping, and weaving techniques and skills. And by the way, I should correct the title to Southeast Asia and Japan. These books also covers bast fiber textiles in Japan. And as regards the plant names, the former, the first literature, referred to 5 different plants with local names, while noting that no botanical names were found out in Cambulo, and noted that all of them were on the other hand, the second one, the material choices. The article on Cambulo textile in this book referred to 6 plants, including 4 plants mentioned in the first one, and noted that all of them were local paper mulberry or its variants, as mentioned earlier, perhaps by Yukiko. I was interested in this observation because it can be similar to then Kozo Kaji textile in Japan, which Kozo Kaji is the family of paper mulberry. But at the same time, I was a little skeptical as it's reported that except for recent introduction, there is no historical botanical record of paper mulberry in the Philippines. This table is work in progress and tentative in nature that is discussed in my forthcoming paper. The 6 plants from the top mentioned in the Milgram, which is the second literature that I mentioned in the previous slide. Yes, these 6 from 1 to 6, these plants are mentioned in the Milgram, the second literature, and an additional 3, Pluit, Gumamela, Lungi. These are the new varieties used by Cambulo weavers these days. And by the way, these from 1 to 9, the 9 varieties are used to make bast fiber textiles. And the last one, Topia, is exclusively for beaten bark clothes. And the Fua, which is number 3, I think in the Philippines, people call it Salago, is used for both both bast fiber textile and Barcloth. And out of 10 plants, 4 appear to be a nettle family, namely Bakhi, Gutugutu, Rai, and Lungi. And the remaining 3 plants appear to be a Moracea or hibiscus family, namely Hapotan, Pluit, and Gumamela. Okay, we go to the next slide. Thank you. My forthcoming article will include the table showing the pictures of these 10 plants with an expectation that botanical experts will offer further inputs to verify their botanical names. Move on to the next. Okay, why do bast fiber textiles and Barcloth remain in Cambulo? Not only do they remain, but the variety of trees they use has increased over the last 25 years, unlike all other villages in Ifugao or most probably in the Philippines. This can be considered as ninth wonder of the world for textile experts. What on earth happened? I guess the story is like this. Sorry. Sorry. With the wider use of LP gas in the village, there are fewer opportunities to gather firewood used as fuel. This means that going into the forest just to find trees for clothes is a costly task for weavers. However, there's a desire to create. By increasing the variety of tree species, the effort of collection can be reduced, while also making it possible to create clothes with a greater variety of textures and colors. In fact, various materials were used in the past, some were not. This way, through trial and errors and repeated experiments on fiber lengths and durability, they increased the number of tree species they used. And yet, the weavers' daughters were not keen to go into the forest to learn the skills of selecting and collecting bark and bast fibers, for the simple reason being that it is difficult to sell bast fiber textile. As a result, this culture is now on the verge of disappearance. Okay. Okay, how should experts from different fields view such a progress over the past 25 years in Cambulo? Okay, public experts would be interested in the varieties of texture and color of the bast textile and Barcloth. Next. Well, material scientists may be interested in the use of bark and bast in view of the cutting-edge technology of cellulose nanofibers that are set to carry the low-carbon economy the way forward. Well, the anthropologists, sorry. Anthropologists like Elizabeth Barber will talk about women as scientists. Well, Japanese cultural anthropologist Ken Matsuki may talk about Barcloth hearts from the perspective of minor subsistence. By the way, unlike bast fiber textile, the Barcloth hat never be sold. It's used, it's made only for the festival, and it's given as a gift. So it's not for livelihood or anything as such. But David Graeber, the anthropologist David Graeber must be interested in view of stimologenesis, or people's tendency to define themselves against one another. I think this is the concept brought by the anthropologist, classic anthropologist Gregory Bateson. Well, the cultural economists would be interested in the aspect of intrinsic value of arts. Lastly, I would like to highlight the self-governance and forest resources by Ostrom, who has the Nobel Prize in Economics winner, the first one as a female, and evolution of forest commons. This is my research interest, actually. And I'll just touch on the forest commons in Cambulo. In Cambulo, the traditional forest management system of Inalahan, which is communal forest, and Pinug, which is private forest, has been protected, and villagers have managed the forest and secured access. Actually, even on private land, Pinug, the owner allows villagers to take wood for firewood and small trees for fiber under certain conditions. Part of the private forest that was burned for camote cultivation has returned to forest as a secondary forest. So there's some dynamics on Inalahan and Pinug. And around 2010, Cambulo adopted an ordinance to prohibit the land from being turned into Pinug again and to make it Inalahan. And the area of so-called forest commons is expanding. And in addition, the village ordinance prohibits taking wood taken there, whether it is Inalahan or Pinug outside. So they can cut trees only to use it in the community. And similar movements are also occurring in Kula and Baghdad. And I'm interested in the way that traditional arrangements are incorporated into the national administrative system while keeping its autonomy meaningfully, dynamically evolving in their own way in responding to the changing environment. Next, please. Okay, this is the last slide. Well, I have to first say I'm interested in the forest commons as an institutional economist, but I have to say the main purpose of our activity here is not really research, but the creation of space. We call it cultural commons. This could be the space where participants can bring creative ideas rather than just inheriting or preserving the culture of past Barcloth, and make it a shared asset for all commons participants. We believe that the community has the ability to play a central role in this space. The circle initiated with the Cambulo weavers and beaters and fiesta participants wearing Bast and Barcloth, museum curators, NGOs such as PRM, is now gradually expanding to players indicated here in this chart. Textile artists elsewhere, agricultural tourist industry, tourists, school teachers, researchers, so on. We would like to invite not only material experts and textile researchers, but also forestry scientists, botany scientists, anthropologists, especially multi-species ethnographers, linguists, sociologists, economists, and of course, practitioners and artists of any field to participate. Anyone in today's audience who is interested in or fascinated by or inspired by Cambulo Bast fiber textile and Barcloth, please join us in the cultural common space. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Miss Yuki and Dr. Tetsu. We are pleased to learn about the bast fiber and barcloth weaving, and we are happier to learn about the intersections and the interface of Japanese and Filipino indigenous textile traditions. We would like to remind our audience that you can send in your questions via the Zoom chat box. And we will be going through the questions after some insights from our commentator. We are fortunate to have with us this afternoon Ms. Jocelyn Villanueva. Ms. Jo is a human rights and indigenous peoples advocate, feminist, and mining activist. Ms. Jocelyn Villanueva will be sharing her insights regarding today's presentation by Ms. Yuki Ito and Dr. Tetsu Ito. Ms. Jocelyn? Sorry, Miss Jocelyn, I don't think we can quite hear your audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, this is so much better. Thank you so much for adjusting.
This one, can you hear me?
This is so much better. Thank you.
So I will just remove the headset. So I just started by thanking Tetsu and also Yuki for that very impressive work that you have done in Cambulo, and as well as facilitating the learning exchange between the Cambulo weavers as well as the Japanese weavers. So I'm coming here, not an expert on bast fiber weaving, but as someone who has studied in my master's thesis, I actually studied the Tinalak weaving of the Tibulis in Lake Cebu. I focus on one of the communities in Lake Cebu. At the same time, over the years, I have also been, because I work with indigenous peoples in the Philippines, so I often come across many indigenous communities with weaving as part of their traditions. So I am coming here with this perspective, as well as my experience as one of the advisors of the small grants program of the Samdana Institute that supported women weavers involved not only in abaka weaving, but also in mat weaving as part of their sustainable livelihoods. Okay, so what I'm bringing here would be the area of focus that I wanted to highlight in my comment would be, one is Cambulo weaving as an indigenous or traditional weaving practice. So the Cambulo community is part of the Ifugao province, so they are part of the indigenous peoples, which is actually one of the 9 ethnic linguistic groups found in the Cordillera. I wanted to bring that in because when we talk about indigenous weaving in indigenous communities, it has a strong interface, the material and symbolic elements. So what they're producing is not just like about cloth or fabric that we use in everyday use, but all of this also has particular symbols and or meanings for the community. So the woven products are also linked to their indigenous cultural identity. So not just the cultural, but as well as also how it interlinked with the political, the economic, the religious, and social identities and practice. So I learned that within Ifugao, so there are different weaving practices, and one would actually distinguish um, a particular, a particular ethnic group by way of the kind of woven fabric that they are using, by the thread that was being used, and also by the type of fabric that they use. So they would easily recognize if you're, for example, from Canaan, or for example, if you're from Cambulo, because there are a diversity of weaving traditions. So in the Ifugao context, I'm not sure, I'm not sure if this is also true in Cambulo. So the traditional uses of the fabric are for blankets, for loincloth, for baskets, for bags, for clothes, and all of this are indicators of social status, political and religious identity, and also like ethnic identities, as I earlier mentioned. I think this is also another pathway for inquiry, further inquiry into the Cambulo experience. So the other reason why I also bring forth the importance of their identity as being part of the indigenous peoples, because under the Indigenous Peoples Rights Act, or IPRA, so there is a provision of protecting and promoting cultural integrity. And so therefore there are services and also rights that the community can actually involve in the process of preserving and or enhancing their weaving traditions. And they can also be protected in terms of, well, if it comes to like intellectual property rights. So that is one. Second would be indigenous weaving, and also the barcloth production is linked to their closeness to the earth or to their environment. I think as we listen to Tetsu and also Yuki's presentation, so they have highlighted the different plants and trees that are being used as resource in order to make the woven fabric and or the barcloth. And mostly in the dye, so they mostly use earth colors because all of this comes from the plant and the rich biodiversity of the ancestral territory of the Cambulo. So in this context, it is important to look at like conservation and sustainable management of the forest, so that the resources continue to benefit from the resources that are being used in the production of hand woven cloth and bark fabric. It is actually like interesting, like in the case of Cambulo, where in other communities or other indigenous weaving villages, so there is already a dwindling resource that they use for weaving. But here we can actually see, like what they said, that there are already like the number or the variety of trees that they use for weaving have increased. And so I think Cambulo has a lot to offer in terms of, like how did this happen? How are they able to effectively, like sustain the natural resources that are important for their weaving? There is also another, but of course, with the changing climate and environmental impacts, so it is, for me, I look at it as a potential area of study to better understand the vulnerability and risk related to indigenous weavers, specifically in Cambulo, but as well as maybe also elsewhere in other indigenous weaving communities. The third perspective that I am also bringing out is about Cambulo weaving as a women's craft. Similar to other indigenous weaving traditions, so weaving is primarily considered as women's craft. However, as we heard and saw from the slides presented by Yuki, so men are also involved in the process, particularly in the preparation of the materials to be used in weaving. in weaving, and also in the bark cloth, especially around, like the process of eating. So men are also actively involved. So this tradition is also similar to the practice that I have seen among the Tibolis in Tinalak weaving, where the men are also involved in the preparatory phase and also towards the latter phase of the Tinalak productions. So men's role in the extraction of fiber or bark has always been part of the ecology of weaving. Some would assert that there is, in this sense, so there is a complementarity in the roles of women and men in weaving. But of course, there is also still, like an area of, this is also like an interesting area to further study, like the division of labor and, like the gender relations involved in the production of bark textile and also bark cloth. I would also like to highlight the intergenerational continuity of weaving, so which was raised by Yuki as one of the challenges, maybe, where there are fewer weavers now, and if you actually look at the photos, so we can see, like older women are the one who are actively involved in weaving. So how can we get the interest of the younger women to be involved in weaving and to continue the tradition of weaving? In the weaving tradition, in many weaving communities, so the knowledge and skills of weaving are being taught by grandmothers and mothers. So they pass it on to their young girl children, mostly in the beginning, mostly through observation and exposure, and during the latter part, I'm not sure whether at what age do women and girls start to be involved in weaving, but in the Tinalak weaving in Lake Cebu, usually women become more involved in weaving after marriage. So the sustainability of Cambulo weaving was raised here as a challenge, and then I'm also curious in terms of like what would be the specific reasons why there are, like the girls and women are no longer interested. I could only just speculate that maybe, like the income that they would generate, the viability of income that they could generate out of weaving. In Mindanao, so I have another section that I will talk about weaving as livelihoods, but I would also just like to quickly share. So maybe one of the approach that they use in Mindanao is to set up schools of weaving tradition. This is actually a community-based learning where, like the grandparents, the mothers, the elders in the community would provide a space for younger children, girls and boys, to learn about their dances, about their language, their songs, weaving, among others. So there's an update now. So because with the integration of the indigenous people's education as a key program of DepEd, so the SLTs, or the schools of living traditions, are also being integrated as part of the curriculum. I've also learned that in Ifugao, in Tiangan specifically, so there is the iPad Center and Community Heritage Gallery. So there is an example of a school of living traditions, and also the weavers are also organized as the Tiangan Weavers Association. So I'm not. Yeah, this would be an interesting area to look at, whether, like organizing the weavers into this, like into some kind of association maybe would actually benefit them. So the stronger interlinkages and expanding the learning exchange among indigenous weaving communities within the Cordillera, with Mindanao weavers as well, with Japan and beyond. So our potential areas for future work, if not yet being done. So it's really great that Yuki and Pitsu have already started facilitating these exchanges. On weaving as livelihoods, so the economic aspect of weaving is actually very important for its sustainability. So I love the idea shared by Yuki and Pitsu on the potential of maybe starting an eco-based or community managed ecotourism. by coming up, like with a tour package where Cambulo would be hosting visitors, but spotlighting their weaving tradition. I'm not sure whether elsewhere it has already been done, but it's really great. I've seen it done. Like the ecotourism, the community-based managed ecotourism in Thailand by the Karen ethnic community. So there's also much to learn from that experience in terms of how to, how to design it more effectively. And maybe this also calls for important, like networking with the local governments and also with the local tourism tourism councils. Marketing is one of the issues raised here. As we also know, there's actually a surge of popularity of hand woven products that are already being marketed. And so there are, like I've been to several trade fairs being organized here in Metro Manila. And so there's a lot of hand weaving traditions, hand woven arts that are being spotlighted. So I'm not sure whether the Cambulo community is also, like started to be linked with this initiatives. But of course, when you go into into full, like commercializing the hand woven products, so there are actually things that need to be looked at. So in terms of the trade-offs, like danger of misappropriation, cultural misappropriation, but at the same time also that's also the danger of the communities not benefiting at all because they don't have negotiating power when they actually like already negotiate with other traders. Yeah. I have also like a list already of like several potential market needs for hand woven products and also like the support services that government agencies provide, such as DTI, DOST, and Department of Tourism, the National Commission on Culture and Arts, the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples. But I will not elaborate on it for the lack of time. But I would just like to highlight one important thing. Like there is the Cordillera Textile project of the UP in Baguio. So they actually spotlight and also provide support for indigenous weaving, especially the preservation of the old weaving practice, and also coming up with innovations around weaving technology that might be interesting to look at and also link with. I think that is for now. Over to you, Clarice, for the open floor.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jo. We appreciate your sharing regarding community-based efforts on cultural education, as well as outlining available support for initiatives related to Indigenous traditions. You have gestured towards perspectives such as Indigenous culture, community-based cultural education, labor economy, gender, and climate action, through which we can have a better appreciation of the textile traditions as presented by Ms. Yuki and Dr. Tetsu Ito. We now open the floor for questions and comments. We encourage our guests and participants to send their questions via the Zoom chat box, and we will be reading them aloud so that our presenters can respond to them. Right? Maybe we can begin with a question posted by Corinne. Okay. So Corinne writes, "Hi Yuki and Tetsu. I appreciate the ideas about linking fiber products with other economic activities such as trekking. What other ideas along this line can be pursued? How can young people in Cambulo be encouraged to learn weaving?" Either Ms. Yuki or Dr. Tetsu can respond.
Hi, thanks. Let me just get this on. Okay. Hi, thank you very much for all of the comments also especially to Joe for pointing to some of the very important areas. So on the first, the comment of Corwin, so we first entered by understanding through the current weavers, but as we saw along the way that we started visiting, there had been some new developments that the younger generation was now becoming a little bit keen on why we are so keen about this bast fiber fabrics. So they started to kind of flock together and listen to us or see us interact with the weavers. And of course, the second generation is already there. But then our new discovery for the past 2 times was that the younger generation within the community, who are, for example, some of our audience right now is born in Cambulo or they have relatives in Cambulo, but they are not living in Cambulo right now. So those people during the fiesta time were very interested to have learning how the weavers are spinning, for example, the ply twisting, for example, because they, as what Joe had mentioned, that it is their identity themselves that they are able to understand a little bit more about how these bust fibers are made and how it is. So they came to the older weavers and they asked to demonstrate how to do these things. So that to me is a very good entry point of how the younger ones are now becoming a little bit interested in trying to understand. It's not only like starting from zero because they have seen the scenes within their household, the mothers and the siblings were weaving. So it's not a zero start, but it's very good that there are first step of showing an interest in this area. Now, I also want to touch just by getting the mic on here for me. I think we've seen like the difference between some of the other products. It's a mass production versus the unique, more of an artistic, purely hand products that the Cambulo makes. So say, for example, for abaca can be prepared commercially. It can also potentially for other plants or trees can also be planted in backyard or something. But what Cambulo is doing is extracting from the forest itself, meaning that it itself is a very artisan weaving and threads that they are used. So we must distinguish that it's not everything that we could sell easily in any of the gift shops. It's not something like that. Then what is it? And that is where we are at the discussion point right now, because there are maybe lots of demands that is coming in, but there are limited resources. And that's where Joe had mentioned about the sustainability of the forest. And the lessons here is that the people in Cambulo exactly know how to balance these by themselves. So it's not like going there to just for the sake of harvesting to make these weavings, but they do multiple things when they're in the forest. They may go and cut the tree because they need to make a house out of a particular strong tree, and they would use the skin of that outer bark to do their products, for example. So it's a holistic way of the living. And as part of the living, it is part of the way that they do these weavings. Another side, and flipping the side, is not only about how the Cambulo people can use their products, but it's also to educate the people themselves who are on the buyer side, or for them to understand they cannot just come and bargain like in something that is made in plastic, for example. It's not the same thing. They need to be educated to understand how relevant and how distinct this is with the other fibers that is seen, or any other chemical products that they are seen more easy shop shelves. You want to say something, Tetsu, on this?
Oh, no, it's
No?
okay.
Okay,
I
yeah,
have
I'll
some comments on the forest.
Oh,
and
about the
environmental
forest?
thing-
Maybe might
environmental
as
thing.
well just say it now while you have the mic in a very short time.
Okay, just, is it okay to
Okay, go
give a
ahead.
comment just about the
course.
environmental issues or the forest management? There's there potentially there's a concern on the use of forest materials. My observation is that it seems the self-governance of the in forestry management seems to be quite well working there in Cambulo compared to many other places in the Philippines or even in Japan. Just looking at the ratio of the forestry preservation ratio, they still maintain well the forestry spaces, and it looks like the self-governance is quite working well. Therefore, I refer to the word forest commons. And I mentioned Japan actually. We live just behind the national forest in Japan. Japan is also protecting the forest. 70% of the land is forest, but it's protected in a way prohibiting the residents' access. So basically, living close to the forest, we cannot do anything. We don't know how to live with forest. We were told not to go into the forest. That way, we maintain the forest. And apparently, the people in Cambulo maintain the forest in a very, very different way, again, by self-governance. So that's the aspect that I'm interested so far I would like to learn. And adding to that, one more thing, our mindset actually is really not to on capacity building or even helping or anything. Our mindset is really learning. It started our own learning from the people there in Cambulo, and we found there's a way of the collective learning among the participants in the commons or the cultural commons, and that's the kind of mindset that we have. So I cannot comment too much on the aspect of teaching or capacity building in this case. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's very fair. We also appreciate your reiteration that the Kambulo are empowered community members in relation to their textile traditions and, as you mentioned, forest commons or natural resource management. I think we have time for one more question, and this is coming from Wendy Beniahan. Right, let me just read her question. After those encounters and exchange of knowledge and skills with the Cambulo weavers, what comes next? Do you have a sustainable project with the barangay folks, especially with the weavers? Thank you very much. So maybe this is looking into the future. If you have any upcoming engagements related to weaving, Miss Yuki and Dr. Tetsu?
Okay, thank you very much, Wendy, and thank you very much for all the comments that you have provided to us through the seminar. Your insights are actually very important. So one thing that we'd like to clarify is that this is not a aid project or anything like that. It is a mutual reciprocal weaver to weaver learning exchange. And this is not something that is normally happening in my past lives, that we will have funds and bring you the funds, or the government brings the fund. And I've seen, I should not be saying this too much, but we've seen some incorrect things happening that was meant to be good intention as a result. So I think this question of what's coming next is the whole discussion that we have been repeatedly having with the weavers community. And as what Tetu said in his last slide, it's the entire cultural commons, and with all the participants, including you who are in this seminar today, that can take part in any way possible to provide inputs to this kind of a idea, or to improve, or you can it really contribute to make things happen for the Cambulo weavers themselves. And so for that, we cannot rely on one single person bringing in something, but everyone needs to chip in to make things happen. So everyone in this call, please join this community to see and find and explore what can happen and to support the weavers themselves. So that's my conclusion, and it's not a conclusion of the our learning experience, but it's a continuous process that we can enlarge the community with all of the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Miss Yuki and Dr. Tetsu. The exchange and the engagement between our presenters, our commentator, and our guests today have enriched this entire encounter with regards indigenous traditions between Philippines and Japan. We'd like to thank everyone for carving out time from their afternoon or from their day to be with us. Just to end, we'd like to hear once again from Dr. Emma Porio.
Thank you very much, Isa, for managing this webinar very well. Thank you very much, Titsu and and Yuki, for a very inspiring and I would say transformative ways that we should look at our engagement. This is what I've been fighting for with scientists, professionals, policymakers, that co-production, co-creation, engage participation, and looking at our partners as in collaboration, that we are equal, we are all children of this universe, children of this earth, we are all entitled to these resources, and therefore I'm very excited, Ticho, about your creating a cultural commons, creating a space. This earth is given to all of us at Pope Francis. It's a gift. It's our only home. But that will be done with it. So I am really thinking that the new conditions that we find ourselves now, wherein the threats of climate impacts and the others, forces us to think, how are we extracting the resources? How are we consuming the resources? How are we producing the products that is supposed to contribute to our well-being and the like? So thank you very much. I really am inspired, and I hope the others have also been inspired by the this exchange. I would say it's also another learning exchange in ourselves. And as I was saying earlier, I hope this is the beginning of a new way of engaging each other, a new way of working with each other. All of those people are interested in creating positive social change and promoting well-being, not only for those who can afford and access resources, but especially for those who are there living in the ground and trying to survive and thrive amidst all this change. So let me now basically say thank you. And I really think that this discussion has really alerted us on the challenges of climate, of the challenges of crafting a new way of engaging each other, a new way of creating change at the micro, meso, and macro level. So thank you. I think this webinar has contributed to alerted us to the challenges as well as opportunities in terms of increasing and co-generating our knowledge of weaving and weaving materials and fiber sources, And also it highlights the importance of sharing knowledge, and really to look at sharing in a very sensitive and caring manner. I would say that if you care for the earth, you care for each other, we care for how we are promoting our well-being, then we should, as few months ago, I was basically giving a talk to some people and was saying that research as care from us researchers. I think that research is care, but as I heard Ticho, you're not there as researchers, but really as a sensitive, human being professional that cares for how this cultural tradition of weaving is being transformed by so many things. So I think what you have done is really create a new way of sharing and learning, and in the process transform our ways of how do we proceed giving this. I'm also very impressed really that in the literature you call about learning exchanges, and I was thinking that this is a very good way of what is horizontal learning. Horizontal learning experience among different, given the different political, economic, and cultural contexts that the Cambulo weavers and the Japanese weavers are into, but you share within a common space of what can we do together to be able to promote the tradition, promote the cultural ways that we're doing, at the same time being able to transform perhaps our ways of producing, our ways of sourcing materials and the like. So I think I was very impressed with the kinds of experimentations and innovations that it created because of the exchange of the different learning contexts, learning tradition, and the weaving tradition. And I think for me, I have been speaking all these years about co-production, co-creation, co-ownership, co-benefits. But for me, this is one of the first I've really seen that, you go there not, from the top down trying to change, but really to learn from each other. And in the process, share the learnings with the other people. And in the process, create new ways and perhaps to interrogate and re-examine our ways of doing things, and really to think, is this the way to go? Is this the way to be adapted, to be thriving, to be transformative, so that we can really promote well-being and resilience in each of us, not just, we finish the project and then, okay. I really like, Yuki, about what you said about, we're not bringing in funds and the like, because I believe, that's what I've been doing also with many groups, but I believe each and every one who are listening here are in their one way or another trying to do works with their respective communities, the respective groups that are, but I think it has not been as systematized as the way you and Yuki has been doing. So I am really listening to you. I was thinking that, promoting adaptation and transformative ways in the way we do our practice of producing knowledge, producing knowledge products and the like. I was thinking, listening to it, and I said, this is the way how engaged, co-generative, and co-creative learning exchanges. In my work, I always say about, the vertical and horizontal relationship and finding your own nexus there, but aware of the other partners in different locations. So when we say in Master of Disaster Risk and Resilience, I always say our job is to do, problem focused, solutions driven with the systems less. You know where you are and where the others are and how you are connected or not connected. And really, so there is so much, I think, to learn in this, what you are doing. And I really think that I'm very excited, teach so about, I'm a fan of Nordstrom. So I'm very I was very excited when you talk about creating, the space for cultural commons. And I really believe that that should be the job of everyone. Because, because if you think of it as creating a common space, then as you said, anthropologists, sociologists, economists, climate scientists, engineers, technicians, and the others, there's a space. And that is the way when you think of systems thinking and systems doing. The interconnectedness and the interweaving with such integrity and respect is what allows us, I think, to save ourselves from from these threats of climate change. So I would say, Ticho and Yuki and Joe and Isa and Josh in Indonesia and all the participants here, I would like to propose to Yuki and Ticho that when you come back again in February, let's have a more deep dive and focus really on, creating that space wherein everyone brings with them their own knowledge, partake the knowledge of the other, and in the process of the interaction and intersections, then we can create new ways, new products, whether it's ideas or life ways that can serve us better, wherein integrity, justice, concern for the care for others, and concern for a common home pervades. So thank you very much. But I really am serious. So in February, let's have a deep dive and really more focus. I think the world, there are so many innovations, but I think it also helps that in our innovative practices, we're also connected to other people who are desiring the same things. Because I always believe that, as I always tell the physical scientists and social scientists and humanists that I was working in coastal cities at risk, I always tell them, by being together, we can be more. But to innovate, I always say, to innovate is to collaborate. But to collaborate is to navigate the systems that we are all in and to see how we can proceed with respect, with dignity, and with justice. So thank you very much. But before I go, I'd like to thank Isa and Joe and Joshua in Indonesia, who has been making us these beautiful posters. And so I'd like to say that, please, we will try to, post this video and recording of this video. But I think because of all these conditions that we are our control, we might have to record some of them again. But please, you can see here, as I said here, thank you. You keep in touch with us through sicarph@ateneo.edu, and also to look at our website. And there's a contact there that you can connect with. The Resilience Toolkit that we made for policymakers, practitioners, and professionals, and the Coastal Cities at Risk, that one. Also, our Master of Disaster Risk and Resilience, we have the link there for Linktree at /Sicar page. So thank you very much. Thank you, Yuki and Titsu. I think this is the beginning of an exciting journey of learning from each other and trying to perhaps create new ways of thinking and doing and practice. I always think that, you're just as good as your practice, not as your words and all the texts that you produce. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you to all the audience there. Thank you for being with us. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please move through the rest of your day with mindfulness and care. Grateful that you have been able to join us this afternoon, and grateful as well to our presenters, our commentator, and our convener, Dr. Porio. See you again. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you. You come here now. Let's eat and relax. Thank you.